It is the second model introduced in the 2024 batch of the Orimeda contest winners, sporting the theme of a cat burglar. It is MTC02 Mystery Cat, with a kit of Disturbance, Level Drain, Charge Drain, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Illusion, which grants the stealth effect to self when charging Metaforce. Now, as the second model introduced in the most recent wave of Orimeda winners, we're most certainly not pulling any punches when it comes to these wonderfully creative designs that the fans have created to be made into official Metarots. And the very creative design of a cat burglar in several different instances of the case, be it a literal cat, a phantom type, and even some nods to the Persona series with the thief mask and the top hat as well, makes it a very creative design that can find a lot of uses aesthetically on pretty much any team she's put on. Disturbance on the head part is a setup-based skill that sets a passive-aggressive trap on the field, and this trap is activated when the enemies try to use any kind of non-combative skill. Basically, if it's not a shooting or a melee type of attack, it will be negated, cancelled, and the enemy effectively wastes their turn. Even if it only lasts 3 charges, this can be incredibly useful for buying your time from anyone using full charge or any kind of healing skill or defense skill, and guarantee that they have to use some kind of offense skill to help kind of keep the combative advantage in your favor. And it is also worth noting that was brought to my attention that Mystery Cat also has the new record for the highest base heat and cool stat when it comes to Disturbance, meaning that she can very easily slap it down and run without really anything needing to stop her or slow her down. Level Drain on the right arm is an ailment-based skill that upon attacking the enemy doesn't attack their parts, it doesn't attack their HP, it instead attacks their metal, which will reduce all of their stats by about 10 levels or so, which means they are suddenly less efficient at what they're trying to do, which will mean less damage, really just overall slightly slower or less likely to dodge or graze, and pretty much attack their mastery at its core, so that you can keep an overall advantage when it comes to keeping your numbers high and your mastery higher than your opponent. Charge Drain on the left arm, on the other hand, attacks the enemy's Metaforce gauge, and instead will attack whatever and steal up to 15 to 20% of what was stolen from the enemy and charge her own gauge with it. So this allows her, gives Mystery Cat a hand in Metaforce control, where she can basically prevent enemies from trying to use full charge to their advantage for Metaforce nuking or Metaforce spamming, or for anyone that is Metaforce reliant for Ghost, Hyper Beam, Hypercharge Buster, or anything of the like. Charge Drain allows Mystery Cat to be able to prevent them from being able to use their fullest potential, or even not at all if she catches them early enough and steals pretty much everything in their gauge. Float Legs means that Mystery Cat will have pretty solid coverage across most terrains at A rank across the board, and of course S rank on Cyber, and basically 10% to all terrains. In trade of this though, even if she is fast, and she does have the highest base non-boss type float leg speed at 920, she is also relatively squishy as well, with the resist stats at 822 for melee and 625 for shooting. She is definitely going to be very squishy, and that's not even including the 10% she's going to get from any terrain, 20% if on Cyber. So she's going to be banking really heavily on her high evade at 1464 to keep her damage low by dodging or grazing as often as she can. But that's also not including Illusion, which will grant stealth to self, which will guarantee that unless she's already being targeted, she can bypass any active shields that are in play and keep the damage off of her as often as possible. When it comes to armor though, she is relatively squishy, like I said, with a head HP of about 3299, right arm at about 3000, and left arm at just barely 3200, and legs at 3240 as well. Relatively squishy, like I said, but for females, that is kind of par for the course. But again, it is also worth noting that she does have the highest base non-boss type float leg speed and Disturbance, which will probably be the two really big reasons she's on the field. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Mystery Cat a pretty middle of the road, I'd say 6.5 out of 10. While she doesn't specialize in raw power or nuking or some kind of absurd healing or defensive skill, her very high base mobility and very high heat stat on Disturbance means that she's going to be specializing primarily in making herself an absolute pain in the neck. and this is going to especially apply to anyone that tries to use any kind of non-combative skills. Shields, healing, full charge, support skills, anything that's not a combative skill that will be pretty much negated, even if it's only for 3 turns. Those 3 turns are honestly going to likely be more than enough for the enemy to be able to strike them down and cut any kind of opposition to its knees. Level Drain and Charge Drain are mostly kind of there just to kind of keep the odds in Mystery Cat's favor or for her allies, either with Metaforce control or with attacking the metal levels, just to help make sure that your mastery stays higher than theirs. But the Float Legs with Illusion does honestly tie into that fairly well to kind of keep her damage as low as possible by guaranteeing that she's not on the field and visible as often as she can. As mixed parts, I do have to rate her just a little bit higher at a 7 out of 10, primarily for the same reasons mentioned. Level Drain and Charge Drain you probably will not use super often, if at all, if I'm being completely honest with you, but the pair of Disturbance and the Float Legs that she does have, even if she is really, really squishy with her damage reduction, is going to be an incredible combo that you're very likely going to be seeing in competitive meta to help guarantee that if they're not using combat skills, it's basically going to be a free turn for you and buy you that extra turn to turn the tides in your favor.